All right, hello everybody, and welcome to lab number 8 for ASI 320. Today's lab focuses on horse computer diet formulation. And so labs 8, 9, and 10, we're actually going to be transitioning where we're going to be using online software instead of doing everything by hand. So everything that we've learned to do by hand up to this point is very important in order to know how to use the software and how to correct in case there are some mistakes. For labs 8, 9, and 10, you'll be graded again based on your effort, not on degree of correctness. And you will not be tested on these labs, so just go ahead and have fun using all these different softwares. So to access the software we'll be using today, it's actually a web page published by the Nutrient Requirements Council. So the very same group that publishes the NRC that we used for the horse diet by hand formulation. So when you type in the address, you can either type it in like this, or if you go to Google and you type in horse NRC, it's the first thing that pops up. We get this knowledge statement. So what this is saying is that you can use this software. However, this software doesn't really tell you if you're having a deficiency or a toxicity to whatever degree. So this is open to the public for anybody to use, but you do have to have a pretty good understanding of equine diet formulation in order to use this software and actually apply it to your own horses. So we're going to click OK, and that opens up the software for us. Across the top of the page here, we have all these different tabs. We're mostly going to be working in the animal specification and then the dietary supply tabs. And we're going to go down here, and on each page, this table is going to come up that looks at the animal requirements, the dietary supply, and the balance. This should look very familiar because we had a table like this when we were formulating whether or not nutrient requirements of horses were being met by hand. So this is the exact same scenario. Instead, now we have a few different nutrients that we're balancing for as well. What we're going to do is we're going to go through an example together, and I put problem 1 on your lab handout. So we're going to read through it together. We are going to balance a diet for an average 1,200-pound gelding that is used for moderate work. Using the animal specification tab, enter the weight in kilograms and activity level. So we're going to go to this animal specification tab, and here we are acknowledging the weight and the physiological state of the animal that we're balancing for. In this case, the gelding is 1,200 pounds. However, for the formulator, everything has to be in kilograms. So we take that 1,200 pounds, divide it by 2.2, and get 545 kilograms. We also have this here, which is the estimated actual weight. You can't really change this. This is calculated for you. This doesn't really matter for your mature horses. Where this really does matter is when we're dealing with pregnant mares. So depending on what month of gestation she is, that foal is going to take up a large percentage of her body weight. So let's say she's at 10 months of gestation. Well, however many pounds of that is actually going to be foal weight when you weigh her. So this formula will estimate her actual weight. We have the intake level as a percent of body weight, and we're going to leave this at 2% for all of the problems you'll be doing in this lab. What this is saying is that at the most, this horse will consume 2% of its body weight. So if we go through, it's a drop-down menu and we can change it. So don't touch this, just leave it at 2. In the problem, we said that we are balancing a diet for a gelding used in moderate work. What we're going to do is then click on the working and training and select moderate as the workload. And then what happens is the animal requirements down here change in order to reflect that physiological state. For part 2 of problem 1, it asks you to copy the animal requirements. You could do that if you want to, just so you're kind of keeping track of where we are, but you by no means have to do that. For step 3, we're going to open the dietary supply tab. we're going to feed our horse 2 flakes of grass hay cool season mid-maturity twice a day. So looking at this here, we can select feeds from a library, or we could actually type over these feeds and enter our own. So this is a really cool feature because although this program does have some very general values for different hays or different grains, if you're feeding a specific type of concentrate and you have the information on the feed bag, you could actually enter that information into here. And for the problems you will be doing on your own, for problems 2 and 3, you'll have to enter the nutrients for omaline, and the feed tag for that is provided in your lab packet. For everything else, we're going to use the library that is included in the NRC. So we're going to feed grass hay cool season mid-maturity. So to add that, we click on New, and so that brings us to the feed picker, and how this is split up is into forage, concentrates, high-fat feeds, and minerals and vitamins. And since we're looking at hay, we're going to stick in the forage category. I said that we were feeding grass hay cool season mid-maturity. So we're going to scroll down and we find that here, and we select it by highlighting it in blue. Then we click select and it appears. And so you can have all of these 7 cells filled with different feeds, but the software won't take them into account in the formulation. So see, it still says 0 here, unless we actually type in an amount in kilograms here. So for problem 3, I told you how much we were feeding. And so we have to take that number and convert it to kilograms. We're feeding 2 flakes. 1 flake is 4 pounds. So that's 8 pounds of hay. And we're feeding it twice a day. So 8 times 2 is 16 pounds. We take that 16, divide it by 2.2, and get 7.27 kilos. And for this software to recognize it, you might have to press enter or just move your mouse to another cell. So we're going to go down here now, and we could see that in the dietary supply row, we do have nutrients being filled in now, and this calculates the balance for us automatically. So anything that is negative indicates that that nutrient is not being met. So looking at this, the only ones that are being met are the calcium and the potassium. So we're really deficient in almost everything. That's going to bring us into part 4. Let's add alfalfa hay, legume forage hay mid-maturity. So we're going to leave the cool grass, the cool season grass, and we're going to go to the next one below here and find the legume forage hay mid-maturity, select it, and it pops up here. How much alfalfa do we have to add in kigs as fed to meet the requirements, ignoring the sodium deficiency? So when we're doing these formulators, it's a lot of playing around with it, and you're going to get a good feel as you're going through how much you should add. So let's start off by just adding 0.5 kilograms and seeing what happens. Okay, the balance is still pretty negative here. So we know that we could increase it by probably a little bit more. Let's increase it to like 3.5 or so. Okay, we're still negative, and I'm going to cheat because I've already done this. And so if we enter 6 kilograms, we end up getting pretty close. So I don't want you guys going like 0.5 increments is fine. Like don't get these numbers exactly to a 0 balance. It's not that big of a deal. The biggest thing that I want you to make sure to meet is the energy. If the crude protein is high or some of the other nutrients are high, don't worry about it. The purpose of today's lab is just to get you comfortable with typing in these values and playing around with the formulator. So by adding 6, everything here is being met except for the sodium, and that's okay. So whenever we're feeding horses, it's very difficult to meet their sodium requirement and sometimes their chlorine requirement using hay and concentrate alone. So if this ends up being negative, we're just going to ignore it and say that we're going to supplement our horse with a salt block. So when you guys are doing these on your own and these two are negative, don't worry about it. Just say that you're going to supplement with a salt block. All right, part 5. What if we add concentrate instead of alfalfa? Insert 0 for kilograms of alfalfa and add oats grain whole 32 pounds per bushel. So oats are a concentrate, so we're going to go in here and we're going to scroll through, and we have to make sure we select the right bulk density, so 32 pounds per bushel. And that pops up here, and what we're going to do is we're going to increase it again by 0.5 until we figure out how much we need to correct the deficiency. Let's increase it a bit more. Oops. Not there. There. Still negative. And so I'm going to cheat again since I already did this. And 4.5 kilograms does meet all of our deficiencies except for the sodium, which again, we provide the horse with a salt block ad libitum to correct sodium and any chloride deficiencies. So for problem 2 and problem 3, for problem 2, it's very similar in that I tell you how much a horse is consuming every day in terms of flakes and scoops of omoline. So just like we did in lab 5, you're going to have to convert those pounds into kilograms. And then for problem 3, it's focusing on a 3-year-old racehorse that's consuming 0.5% of his body weight per day in hay. So you're going to start off with that as the base, and you're going to have to figure out what 0.5% of his body weight is and enter that into this formulator. With problem 3, as well as problem 2, you can increase the amount of omoline the horse is eating to meet their requirements, or I'll give you free range to add any of these ingredients in here as long as it makes sense. So you can go in and probably add like, let's see, corn grain and add like 100 kilograms of that. Keep typing into the wrong thing. 100 kilograms. And that will absolutely meet his requirements, right? Like it way meets it. So that doesn't make any sense. There's no way a horse is going to be able to eat 100 kilograms. So when you're doing this, don't just, type in whatever to try and meet the requirements. It should be a pretty feasible number. So just keep that in mind as you're doing this. And again, this formulator does have the beauty of allowing you to kind of customize whatever you're feeding your horse as long as you're meeting the requirements. And so as you guys are going through and doing this lab, just type in for each of the problems what's deficient and what ingredients and how much you're using. You by no means have to provide me screenshots of this formulator. So any questions, feel free to email me, but I think this is the easiest formulator that we cover in this course, and have fun.